Killer Mike has been dragged based upon a video. It actually kind of came out of the blue a little bit. So Killer Mike posted a video recently based upon the Voting Rights Act and the stuff that's been going on in Louisiana. He posted a video essentially saying, hey, we need to get out there and vote, and we need to flip the stuff, and, you know, we need to do the things that we need to do. And he has essentially been dragged. But a lot of it is the stuff that I've been seeing is people pulling up, you know, the fact that saying that, you know, he was anti-Kamala Harris, and he helped get Trump elected, things of that nature. You know, Governor Kemp, you know, apparently not supporting Stacey Abrams, which he did, and things of that nature. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have any particular questions or thoughts about any of this, or if you've seen kind of this pop off. But do you guys have you seen this dialogue?
I've seen it. I've paid a good amount of attention to it, you know, because there have been things that, while I'm a huge fan of his music, I have disagreements with some of the things that Killer Mike has stood on. You know, I understand he was all about Bernie Sanders, and that was, you know, and the thing is, I was right with him.
Sure.
You know, but once Bernie wasn't the nominee, you had to understand, it's like, okay, just because, you know, my guy didn't make it, I'm certainly not going to either stand down or not support the person that has more things in common with my platform and with my beliefs than the person who is diametrically opposed to not only what I believe, but I think democracy in general. And that's been Donald Trump the last 3 election cycles.
Sure.
It's so hard because you want, you know, there's always the whole thing. Oh, black people are not a monolith, you know, when it comes to voting. But at the same time, like when part of that monolith is being opposed to white supremacy, you know,
Fair.
it's kind of hard for you to say that, you know, we don't all feel the same way, because pretty much, at least the black people I'm around and choose to be around, we all are opposed to white supremacy. Now, mind you, I've watched some people just tap dance for a better position for it, and maybe be, you know, they don't have to feel so much the heat of white supremacy. And I think that's been shocking and sad to see. I don't think I would put Killer Mike into that category.
Mm-hmm.
But we're in a very strange time to where, you know, a lot of times with Democrats and people on the left, progressives, as you will, and I can't even always put Democrats and progressives in the same boat.
I don't put them in the same boat.
Exactly. It's like sometimes if you can't, you ever just known somebody who, if they can't get everything they want, they wind up not wanting anything.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of what happens with the left. And on the right, they will accept somebody who is so incredibly flawed, who can just give them 5 of the 10 things that they want. Because that's really what Donald Trump is. Because like here it is, people who are quote unquote evangelical Christians and people of faith were able to hold their nose at this man who, you know, basically paid a stripper with a check so they could get the things that they wanted.
Right.
And not all of them, but the things, but they prioritized having things on a list. And one of the things I think a lot of people wanted to prioritize, even if they couldn't get everything they wanted, was maintaining democracy and the Supreme Court. And
they got all of that.
No, that's what the right got. That's what I'm saying. Was what they held their nose so they could get the Supreme Court. And Democrats, people on the left, they couldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, it's weak. It's very weak. But like, I think this situation with Killer Mike, 2 things can be true at the same time. A lot of people, especially like down south, that look at a particular figure as far as being famous or whatnot and having influence and having a mouthpiece that can speak on what was going on in the community. Killer Mike is one of those individuals. I feel like he kind of used his influence by not saying to, you know what I'm saying, get behind this candidate or whatnot. I don't think he meant it maliciously, but unfortunately it acted as something that happened maliciously, because we're not named necessarily maliciously, but it's something that happened because there's people looking to him that really aren't into politics, and they hear him not say what they want to hear. And it's just like, okay, well, if Killer Mike's not doing it, then I'm not doing it either.
Right.
It was one of those situations to where, again, the influence, and he didn't use his power to make people think differently. It was all about thinking differently by just saying that just because they black, I'm not gonna vote for them. That's kind of where it led from. But
yeah.
In the same token, the Democratic Party is 100% more. You know what I'm saying? The reason why a lot of people didn't do it. Like we can point the blame at Killer Mike, and I agree he did do some things that he shouldn't have did. But as a whole, the Democratic Party should be the one to blame.
I agree. You have anything?
Nope.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up good points about him having the type of influence and the people that maybe don't pay as much attention into politics, and the type of influence that he has could potentially persuade, people in that particular type of way. But I've seen other commentary around things such as, this is misogynoir. He just didn't want a black woman to be, president, things of that nature. Even around the comment where he said, well, you're going to have to earn my vote. I'm not just going to, I'm not just voting for somebody because they're black.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, Jay, I know you have something to say, but I'm curious if you guys think that like how much onus should somebody like Killer Mike have when he has been campaigning for a specific category, a type of politics in general, and then that necessarily does not win because to your point, progressivism and the Democratic Party are not
completely aligned.
They don't align. And realistically, I would say they don't align at all because where they're rooted from. And so like, I 100% understand why leftists and socialists do not align with Democrats when it gets past the primaries. What I will say is almost all leftists that I know still vote for Democrats. But the problem is that you can't really get people excited. You're not going to get the leftists excited to go out and to campaign for some shit that they feel is still diametrically opposed to their worldview. And the Democrats don't cater to leftists at all. And so I think that's another piece that's kind of wedged in here that we kind of have to pay attention to. Like, there are
people in the margins.
It's like, the people are expecting Killer Mike to balance that in a way. The ethics of his moral character around what he wants to see happen, and also like, hold his nose and say these other things to support maybe somebody that he doesn't support.
Some of those people, since he didn't announce his alliance with Kamala Harris, may not have voted at all.
Sure.
Which essentially is a vote for Donald Trump or the Republican Party at the end of the day. But again, you can't put this 100% on Killer Mike, and he says some things that I don't agree with. But like some of the stuff I'm reading about him, how people feel, they are reading this dude his rights.
Man,
like,
it's crazy.
I seen a post. Shout out to Jess. He actually shared a post on Facebook where somebody was going in on Killer Mike about all of these different things, and it's like right now you're making it urgent that we need to get out and do something. But we should have been urgent before this last election.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's almost like people just didn't think this was going to happen again, and it happened again. Well, I think everybody knew it was going to happen again because of how it was set up.
And I think you could very easily counter that and say, well, Killer Mike has been very urgent in his messaging to support candidates that were not going to continue this status quo.
Right.
Right. But it just depends on where in the line, he was urgent for a very long time.
Yeah, he was urgent.
No, he was very urgent.
But when it was time
about Bernie Sanders,
he was.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know I was. I wanted Bernie. I was actually campaigning and not even on the campaign to like the older members in my family.
Sure.
Trying to. This is back in the Hillary days. Like,
yeah, same.
No, y'all need to vote for Bernie Sanders because this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? But they are familiar with Hillary Clinton, so they voted for Hillary Clinton. We all knew that wasn't going to work. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I understand riding for who you wanted to win. But in the same token, like the right does, once whoever they thought or wanted to win, okay, that person didn't win. We got to get behind this person regardless. and move forward.
Yeah, outside of the primaries,
Yeah.
advocated for it, but then that's over with. Go ahead, Jay.
No, I you know, and I also advise that people do, you know, some more reading.
Yeah.
You know, shout out to there's commentators. Her name is Goldie Taylor. She's a veteran and a graduate of Emory. Somebody I followed for a while. I discovered her. I don't want to say I discovered her, but I found out about her. She used to go on Bill Maher, and she has a great kind of write up.
I didn't like it.
What does she look like?
She's an older woman.
Okay.
She is Dear Killer Mike, S the F up.
That's
Yeah.
the one I read.
I read that today.
Yeah.
And so I mean, like, I'm not completely endorsing everything she said, but it's worth checking out.
I actually, to be honest, if you have read this is actually kind of, I think she makes a lot of points in this that are great, but I think I'm not black. So from that perspective of like when a black person is speaking to other black people, I'll remove myself from
But also,
that. You know, like
I read the article, but like, I don't think telling Killer Mike to shut the F up. That's the only part I don't. That's not constructive at all.
It's not, but he'll tell her to shut the up.
Well,
Not because she's a woman, but like he's very passionate when it comes to like the political, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
state of things. So,
yeah. So I don't think her starting with Killer Mike, shut the F up is constructive. But
I don't even care about that part.
But I did, you know, like I said, just do your own reading, you know, just find some other things but I do think that just because, okay, yes, maybe you disagree with some of the things that Killer Mike did, but I do know he came out for Raphael Warnock. I know he did come out for Stacey Abrams. I know he did come out
For a lot of
John
people.
Ossoff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can't just act like he was a surrogate this whole time for Donald Trump and his politics and his policies. That's
the
unfair.
position. That's the positioning that I don't like.
Yeah.
Is that.
And so
he's not out here tap dancing.
no,
know
not
what I'm
he's
saying?
let's not put him in with those folks.
He really
Yeah.
just kind of abstained, and so from that perspective, I can still understand why people would be upset. But
That,
like,
yeah, exactly.
you know, like
That's the point.
I get
Yeah.
that. I get that. But he was just kind of like abstaining, like, you know.
You know,
But he did ride for a lot of people.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It's not like he, you know, and I know somebody's gonna be mad at this, but I know if, I don't know if when you guys listen to Joe Budden, Mark Lamont Hill is one of the, and he said out loud, "I'm voting for what's the name, the old person we only find out every 4 or
Jill
5
Stein?
Jill Stein."
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I was like, what?
she gets a bad rap too.
You know,
She's
but,
been the propaganda against her is ridiculously crazy. But anyways,
but you know, it was like, okay, but it was after, you know, it was like, okay, these are the two people who are running, and you said you're gonna vote for
This
Jill
third
Stein.
part,
and
yes.
Jill Stein voters had no effect on who won the candidacy
No.
and who won anything. To Terry's point, this
It's
is
the
the thing
people who
that
stay home.
to Terry's point, I'm gonna keep saying this until the cows come home or whatever. We're from Indiana, we can talk about cows, but like, it's the establishment's job, the Democratic Party, to put a candidate up there that is electable and that people want to like. And if you are going to completely abstain from the left, that just kind of, you know, that you know what they want, and you're gonna have this corporate, you're going to lose those people.
It still wasn't fair to her though.
Fair to who?
Kamala.
Kamala. Yeah.
You sound like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kamala.
What wasn't fair to her though?
Just the way they threw her in there like that.
No, I don't think so either.
No, it wasn't.
She,
But that's the establishment.
that's the
Yeah.
establishment
Yeah,
did this because this establishment was not listening to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And like all of the blame, in my opinion, needs to start at the establishment.
party.
It
Yeah.
needs to start there, and it needs to realistically stay there. And the pressure needs to be applied to the people that keep propping up the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
No,
know?
I've always thought, well, wait a minute, how is it, after we had 8 years of Barack Obama and during the next election cycle, I'm having to choose between two people who voted for the 94 crime bill. Like, how do we get there? You know, Democratic Party.
And what type of like mental gymnastics are we doing here to try to make?
Black people like both of those people though.
That's fair.
And what's sad about it is they don't really know the history. They're familiar with these people.
Mm-hmm.
So they voted for familiarity. Essentially, they didn't vote for the policy or what they knew could happen. Like literally, when I talked about what Bernie Sanders was talking about, I was giving them all his running points.
Yeah.
And they were telling me, well, he can't do that. I'm like, how do you know he can't do that? If it sounds good to you, then why wouldn't you get behind that? Well, because I just know he can't do that. How many politicians have ran and do 100% of what they tell you they're going to do anyway?
Mike responded to a couple things too. And, don't get me wrong. Mike said some stuff, even on his last album, he had a couple lines on there that I'm just like,
It wasn't rap music, Mike.
It's like, nah, it's like, that's why you're broke, and things of that nature. And then the comments that he made on Shannon Sharp, he's like, I got my stripper wife. I got all the stuff I need. I'm good. It's just like, okay, Mike, you're kind of on some other shit over here, which kind of goes against the brand that he kind of pushes out there, it's just to some degree, I guess.
Pushed.
Yeah, pushed.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
and I think that's where a lot of people are, where it's like, wait a minute, well, I'm here, I got mine. Why didn't you get yours?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's the worst kind of mentality to have. So
I hate that it happened, that this is happening to Mike too, because like he's had a lot of momentum and a lot of good ideas, a lot of just acknowledging the problems and trying to create solutions for it. And a lot of it is getting lost in, just the few things that he did that people don't agree with does not sum up
exactly
100% of who Killer Mike is. So
It'll pass though.
I don't know, man, because some of the damage, like when certain people rally behind somebody and deem them as poison to the climate and don't listen to this particular person unless they really do something that redeems them in the eyes of them, then people don't listen to them anymore. We've seen that happen with a lot of cultural, political influencers. Like when somebody talks about even Jesse Jackson went through a period of time where nobody cared about what Jesse Jackson thought. Reverend Al Sharpton, nobody cares about what Reverend R. Sharpton thinks about or is trying to aim for because of certain things came up in his past that people wasn't rocking with. So like I would hate to see this happen with Killer Mike because I feel like he's bigger than what the mistake is that he made. I feel like he can correct this and it shouldn't be deemed as, this big thing that can't be corrected. That's all.
It's just going to be hard for people because when you see 500,000 black women who've lost their jobs, when you see the prices at the gas pump and you see literally Republicans after the Supreme Court ruling going out of stopping elections and redrawing congressional lines, that's hard for people to forgive very quickly.
Exactly.
That's real.
He's going to have to, the lines of dialogue are going to have to be opened up, and he's going, I don't want to say be gracious. Yeah, you got to be gracious. Like, you can't start off with like, well, I've done this. Like, and that's sometimes where Killer Mike is. And that's part.
Come in with a listening ear.
Yeah, and that's part of why so many of us F with him. But at the same time, like sometimes you got to read the room. Now is not the time.
Yeah, I think it depends on how he posits himself in general and how I mean one thing that I think I understand that I'm not the regular pay attentioner because I do
pay attention
and so like I can see like. Again, Killer Mike is not like the end all be all in general.
Nah.
Like everybody is a human and everybody makes mistakes. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, all right, because Killer Mike abstained, he's responsible for the Voting Rights Act. It's like, all right,
that's too far.
To me, it's too far. It's like a little bit too liberal for me, and it's just like painting the wrong horse. Like Killer Mike is also very instrumental in the progressivism that is actually moving really strongly in that direction right now. And so like, if you look at it from that perspective, a lot of the seeds that he's, planted and a lot of the people that he's helped grow politically and think about things in a different type of manner, you could say that in the long run, a lot of that stuff is what's actually going to be,
legacy
more. Yeah. And it's going to be more impactful than him just abstaining or saying, like you have to, you're not just going to get my vote because you're black. Like, so I think when you look at the, like, because I can look at Killer Mike and be like, I don't like these things about the things that he represents and talks about, but he's still in general, like, I like most of what he does.
There's specific things. It's not him as a whole.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Like I can tell where his heart is because I've been paying attention to him for a very long time, and and I've seen his resume, and his resume is extremely long, and it's a lot longer than a lot of the people that are criticizing him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the things that winds up making the conversation way more complicated than it needs to be, especially when you're talking about these establishment Democrats, if you will, is, there's nothing wrong with black people saying, hey, we want something for our vote. And that's part of where Killer Mike has been coming from this entire time. And a lot of times with that establishment, it's like, hey, we got to vote this way or they're going to take this away from us. It's like, well, we can't just vote out of fear.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's where a lot of us are, because we know, we can't ever say when someone says, oh, no, we're not going to do that with Project 2025. That's not real. And it's like, come on, man. We knew that was real. At least I did.
Yeah, I did too.
And so, but that's the hard part about being
learned,
being learned, and that just understanding that, like, look, man, if we keep voting out of fear, we're never going to get anything. But like the fact that we don't get anything, that should be the thing that we fear. Yeah.
That's why when I boil this all the way down to the simplest, I keep thinking if we all right, it's going to be 20. When's the next president? 2030? Is that when the next president?
2028.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Shit. Starting. It's like, damn, this is a long time. We might not make it. We still might not make it. But
it's looking bleak.
But when I think about, like, if we have every single time that we accept this bullshit harm reduction vote, it moves all the progressive momentum aside. Again, I know I'm coming from my perspective here, but I do see a lot of progressive movement right now, which I think is really cool. And I do see a lot more people talking about and calling out stuff. And I feel like Mike had a significant part in that. And
absolutely.
So like, yeah, I would and I would honestly, I would bet money that he actually voted for Kamala Harris.
I bet he did too. Yeah.
So after the primaries are over, yes, you should absolutely vote Democrat. That's just the facts of the matter. You should, because you don't want what's going on in the right wing. And I think sometimes us on the left feel like people are smart enough to just realize that.
And it's not, yeah.
And sometimes we have to realize that, no, we have to, it's not even that people aren't smart enough. It's just that people are apathetic to it.
And you have to continue to be progressive. Like, once you get a victory, you can't become complacent because you won that one. You have to continue to fight. It doesn't stop right there.
Yeah.
The end goal is way farther than that. This is just setting up the building blocks. You have to continue to do it. And I think that people failed to realize that once Barack Obama won the presidency, that wasn't the goal. That was the goal. That was a win for that point in time, but that wasn't the goal for the, the long game.
Term.
Because the thing is, and I know people have criticisms of Barack Obama, and I certainly do as well. But the thing is, we showed up for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012.
Yeah.
The people who did not like Barack Obama showed up every year in between.
I still rock with Killer Mike, man, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean.
No, and I don't want him to shut the up. I want to hear what Mike has to say, and we got to keep it moving. We can't become this adversarial situation where there are progressives fighting each other.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what he was saying in his video was accurate.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
very much so.
If we
and
take
even the stuff that people were talking about, they have valid points.
Even I think he was valid in I'm not going to vote for you just because you're black.
I mean,
yeah, that's valid, but again,
it just wasn't the right time.
Yeah, it's the messaging. Yeah. Just kind of like the wrong way to say it. It's like off the cuff type thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Biden wasn't valid when he said, if you ain't
vote for me,
you know what I'm saying?
Not black.
That was dumb as shit.
That was just old man.
He was having a senior moment.
You just have to understand the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.